What makes a man change? Each one of us are on our own individual path, but the beauty and complexity of life is that we don't know where this path we are on is going to lead us. We have aspirations, expectations, plans, but we are also prisoners to circumstance. You may have it in you to become so many different types of people, but as each of life's many tests are thrown at you, with every decision that is made, the options slowly narrow down to make you the precise version of yourself that exists today. Do these experiences make you who you are, or simply reveal who you were all along? Human beings are social creatures by default, and we all need interactions, companionships, and intimacy at certain points in our lives. But the game of life is never about always indulging yourself in good times. You will inevitably have to face the bad and annoying times too. A lot of unwanted and unfortunate circumstances in life are undeniably irritating and intolerable. We all put a barricade on the things that are hard, unpleasant, tedious, painful, irritating, and catastrophic to keep them away from ever infiltrating our peaceful but naive minds. By entirely rejecting unwanted circumstances, you are basically rejecting the pain of reality. It is like expecting a flower to bloom and not die. Yuji is subtextual and deeply embedded in the narrative, such that you really have to peel some layers back to properly see him for all that he is. Those who are not big fans of the series just don't want to spend the time to do that. He is a likable and empathetic person, but he lacks the more prominent qualities needed to survive. He is too tempered by the story to persist in his original form, but perseveres anyway. That relentless hope, battered and bruised, and dimmed and mocked, but present and alive, is something that speaks to me without words that I inherently connect with. To put it simply, Yuji has suffered immensely through the first 2 seasons of Jujutsu Kaisen. In circumstances of varying horror, he has set out to try to help and save as many people as possible, only to find himself to not only be helpless, but indirectly become responsible for the pain and suffering of so many people. He is so preoccupied with this unraveling burden and guilt he feels at not being able to make up for the lives lost that he finds himself plagued by desperation that eats at him from the inside and manifests in immense self-hatred in the darkest moments of his life. He has had this brutally pointed out to him by the narcissists that surround him, grasping at any opportunity to devilishly laugh and mock his helplessness while they continue on their insidious crusade, leaving him in the pile of despair for no apparent reason. If this tells me anything, narcissism is not a new trend. In fact, selfish, self-righteous, arrogant, manipulative people have been around since the beginning of time. Even Jesus had to deal with them. The crazy thing is, Jesus dealt with narcissists that many would not assume. You may have been taught to believe that Jesus was a very kind, docile, understanding, easygoing individual, and he let any and everybody do and say whatever they wanted. This is how many believers grow up believing this was who Jesus was, and so, when people ask, what would Jesus do, and they encounter a narcissist, they usually allow narcissists to push past their boundaries, to say things they should not be saying, and many people enable narcissistic behavior because they think that being kind, patient, and loving is the way that Jesus would handle it. This is actually far from the truth. Even though Jesus is obviously loving and compassionate and empathetic and open and kind, there are many things that Jesus did that a lot of churches don't talk about. These things are the things that help you navigate the land of narcissistic abuse in a righteous way that does not take away your belief in Jesus and desire to be an uprighteous individual. It also shows people exactly who they're messing with. Yuji has this unrealistic savior complex while sharing a body with this setting's equivalent of a Grim Reaper that wreaks complete and utter havoc with a casual shrug on the shoulders. He is so doomed to fail that it is almost hilarious, and those who are against him always make sure to point that out to him. Narcissistic individuals usually always have an inflated sense of self. They are very self-righteous about it, and they will even use the Bible to justify their righteousness. This is a punishing world that laughs at hope and demoralizes those who try in vain to flip it on its head, and Yuji is the foremost one who persistently attempts to do that. He tries to make gigantic waves and changes, but he can't. He tries to be idealistic by trying to maintain as many connections as possible in a world that does not allow for that. A world that slowly gives more and more evidence to the idea that Sukuna's mantra is much more in line with how the world works. Strength in solitude, dismissing humanity as you burn the world to cinders. It reinforces the setting that it feels like it is personally formatted to taunt Yuji. He is Sukuna's eyes and ears, his hands and feet, and he will be punished until he lives in the real world. That there is no meaning here. Idealism has no place, and the world will keep moving like nothing happened. The Pharisees were a Jewish religious group that was very strict about God's law and traditions. The Pharisees always believed they knew everything, and they knew exactly what God's truth was. They thought they were spiritually superior than other people, and they used this spiritual superiority to take advantage of people, to change people's view of the world, and even to kill people. There were so many things the Pharisees did to people that were technically unbiblical, but they convinced themselves in their mind that they were the best because they knew God's word. How does Jesus react to the Pharisees? Matthew chapter 23 verses 27 to 28 says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." If you still don't understand what I just read, Jesus basically said, you guys are so sad to think you know everything. Jesus immediately called out their hypocrisy and was very blunt about it. He called them out for using religion to make themselves look good while manipulating the people they were teaching. He did not engage in flattering them or trying to make them feel better because he was scared. He did not even try to walk on eggshells. He let them know who they were, what they were doing, and what they needed to do to get right with God. It's important to speak to the truth of the matter with clarity, strength, and courage. Trying to flatter them so you don't provoke them won't do anything but enable their idea that they are superior to you. When we walk around scared, people naturally feel more powerful than you. We don't need to call them names or become abusive about it. Jesus only had good intentions when cutting through this mess, and we can do the same thing. Jesus did not allow himself to be manipulated by anybody, and we know that narcissists are very keen on manipulation. They will use emotions, guilt, and play a number of mind games to get their way, even to push past boundaries and make you think that you should reevaluate yourself. They have the personality of a bulldozer. They will not stop until they get what they want, and they do not care if you get hurt in the end. Jesus did not let this happen. In the face of this, there are two choices: be crushed under the weight of this misery, or accept that the world is this way and be loyal to what matters. The Pharisees tried a multitude of times to trap Jesus with a series of questions to undermine his authority and to discredit him. Anytime this happened to him, Jesus immediately shut it down by calling them out for what they are and reinforcing his boundaries. Jesus is kind and peaceful about it, but he is also not going to be mistreated or manipulated or tricked into doing something that he knows is wrong. Matthew chapter 4 verses 8 to 11 says, "Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. 'All this I will give you,' he said, 'if you will bow down and worship me.' Jesus said to him, 'Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only.' Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him." I don't think any of you understand how pivotal this moment is for Jesus. The devil was willing to give Jesus everything, and Jesus responded by saying, "Get away from me." Jesus does not let people manipulate him, And you don't have to either. He showed compassion, but he also set boundaries. Compassion and love for Jesus did not mean being a doormat and allowing people to walk over him and take advantage of him. He always set boundaries with people, even his disciples. Jesus did not engage in power struggles or debates with anybody. A narcissist's arguments are not for the sake of being right. A narcissist's arguments are for the sake of putting you through a mind twirl because in their head, they already think they are right. Yuji is a reader that must come to terms with the cruelty of the world. He wants to overpower it, turn it into the light, and change it, but he is slowly forced into submission and forced into understanding that it is not possible. This is shown during his fight with Sukuna when he takes possession of Megumi's body. Yuji is once again faced with the revelation that these are curses. In other words, people know the difference between good and evil, but just don't care. Knowing that it is in the face of such a large amount of cruel apathy, there is now no romantic reason for what Yuji does. It is just the simplest basic form of acting, making the right decisions, which is the one that keeps him and the people he cares about alive. He is grounded, and he has realized that not only is he not some sort of hero, but the world cannot accommodate any hero. Narcissists will not be convinced that they are not superior to people. They will try to provoke you. They will try to enable you. They will try to get you to engage in arguments and conflict. They feed off of your attention. They love your hate. Even Jesus said it is a waste of your time. We have to follow Jesus' model. The book of Proverbs, which is a collection of wise sayings, shows you to not fight with fools, because all they will do is fight all day. You will be wasting your time, and you will actually become a fool because you are fighting with fools. Yuji sees a world to fix with small acts that will strengthen the light just a little. Small acts that will contribute to fixing something in a world that continues to prove Sukuna's philosophy about life correct. Yuji fights against the tide continuously, and it is worth noting that doing that continuously will leave you completely vulnerable to being hurt in the most extreme ways possible. This could end horribly, but Yuji knows his role. To have an iron mind is not to prevent the poison of negative circumstances from infiltrating your mind, because they will infiltrate your mind regardless, but it is to allow your mind to develop the ability to confidently handle those poisons. You have to think of yourself as dead. You lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. I'm not here to make you all pessimistic. I'm just here to show you how you can take all these unwanted and unfortunate problems on a stride. Narcissists have unfortunately chosen the lifestyle of a fool and not following God's truth, God's wisdom, and God's way, so we don't have time to argue with fools. If you are encountering a narcissist in your life, I encourage you to distance yourself completely from this individual or group of individuals because they are not ready to be in your life in a companionship level. To put it simply, they are not buddy material. Even if no one else accepts it, I'm willing to go on living with you. This was Yuji's ultimate act of forgiveness to the narcissist in his life. I should congratulate you on carrying this foolishness to the end, Yuji Itadori, but don't underestimate me. I am a curse after all. Essentially saying, I will never change, and that is the only closure you should have with the narcissist in your life, because they would rather abandon and ignore you than to hold themselves accountable. It's easy to say that his biggest weakness is his idealism, but that's not the case, because this is a man who has the ability to get beaten up and taunted, to miserably suffer and get punished, but to still get up in spite of it and live in service of his ideals, the ideals that are so important to him. That is not his biggest weakness. If anything, that is his biggest strength. His biggest weakness is the narcissists that surround his life, the inability to cope alone, and it makes sense. After being told by his grandfather on his deathbed to not end up alone like him, and after being somewhat ironically poisoned by the idea of dying in this perfect death, surrounded by the people who love him, Yuji has a goal in mind for his life that is not matched by reality, and as such, is unattainable. But he refuses to believe that, because of how much he strives for that idea. But it is better to be alone than to be with a narcissist. In fact, that should be your one and only choice. Stay away from them because these type of individuals are tormented and oppressed by demonic forces, which has led them to be narcissistic in the first place. They need God's deliverance and your prayer. They don't need your close, intimate friendship because you will open doors for them to ultimately torment you, or the demons that are tormenting them will torment you because you did not create strong boundaries with these people. I am personally disappointed with the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen because with everything that has happened, Yuji's story, in my opinion, was not about surrounding himself with people. Yuji's story was about learning how to become comfortable being by himself. From start to finish, Yuji has always remained unapologetically himself, and he will take that as far as he can. People who continue to be themselves during and after difficult times are the real strong people we need in this world. Psalm chapter 25 verses 14 to 18 says, "Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distresses." Isaiah chapter 41 verses 10 also says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Yuji is different, and that's a good thing.